Hey everyone, and welcome back to Magic Towers Resort. If you've been here for a while, then this is probably not the shot that you were expecting, or should I say the game that you were expecting. Now, originally, Magic Towers came into existence about 10 years ago when I came up with the entire idea of the name and the towers at the center of the park, and I've been using that name ever since for different kind of concepts for parks. Now, originally, the concept that I'm now building in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 initially started in Planet Coaster as well. However, I found that it wasn't quite as feasible as I had hoped and took a lot more time than I expected, so I kinda abandoned the project. However, I do want to give a bit more depth to the rides that I'm creating in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2, especially in terms of the dark rides and things like that. So that's exactly why we're back in Planet Coaster for a little mini-series in which we're building the main centerpiece, the Magic Towers. The Magic Towers houses a dark ride that's very much based on the Tower of Terror concept that you see at the Disney parks. So that's exactly what we're gonna work on in this episode. I already started on it, so we're just gonna finish it with this mini-series. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Welcome back to Magic Towers Resort. Alright, time for the time lapse. So as you can see, we're right inside of the building right now. This is one of the show scenes that you'll see during the ride, and it was missing some details. Now overall, I think most of the show scenes inside of the dark ride are mostly finished. They just need some small touch-ups, so you'll see me go through them during this video really quickly. Now, I have to admit, it's been a really long time since I last booted up Planet Coaster, like, things like the control scheme and things like that are a bit rusty. Like, I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring out how to do everything that I want. But I think I'm getting the hang of it again, so you'll see me struggle a few times during this video, so I hope you guys don't mind. But in the next videos, that will hopefully not be the case anymore. So this ride is an elevator-based ride, so you're sitting in an elevator that moves around inside of this building and has some drops during the ride where you fall down in a free fall movement. And also move slowly throughout the building as well to really show the show scenes. Now, the story behind the Magic Towers is that that's where the wizard lives who protects the land that you're in. And you happen to be here at the Magic Towers to get a tour of the towers with the wizard that lives there. However, during the trip, of course, things go wrong, and some kind of evil spirit managed to open a portal to the Magic Towers and is about to ruin the lands. So, it's your job, together with the wizard, to protect the lands by defeating this evil being that's currently inside of the castle by crushing it with your elevator. So that's really roughly the story behind the ride, and we'll work it out a bit more as we go on. But that's basically the reason why the guests are here and what is going to happen during the ride. And the way I want to explain that is basically by having an audio soundtrack throughout the entire ride, where you actually hear the wizard talking to you, you know, kind of explaining things during the tour, and then of course explaining what's going on as the evil spirit, or at least as the wizard finds out that there is an evil spirit at the tower while you're there as well. So that's kind of what my idea is for this dark ride. Now, so far, most of the scenes, of course, are made, but the queue line is mostly empty so far. I only placed down the walls, basically. So I really just had to decorate it a bit further, so that's what we're gonna do in this episode. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of queues, or at least teaming of queues in Planet Coaster so far, so this has been pretty new. Just kind of trying to figure out what pieces work best for things that I want to achieve. But I like this hallway that we got here. So this hallway leads straight into the ride and will also be the exit from which the guests will exit the ride as well. But I quite like the feeling that it gives. It really gives this castle kind of hallway feel. It's a little bit mysterious. It's pretty high as well. It has some dim lighting. I think it really fits with the atmosphere that we're going for inside of this ride. But of course, we also want to really show the magical parts of this ride, and I like this room for that because it's really overgrown with this magical kind of vegetation that's growing all over the walls. However, it felt a bit flat, so it needed a bit more depth just to make it a bit more interesting. So that's why I'm adding these arches here in the middle. Also to kind of just obfuscate the fact that this is just a zigzag going through a room. Kind of trying to break up the patterns, and this is what you see theme parks do a lot. Whenever, or at least the better theme parks, try to break up their patterns. It's really important. As humans, we like to recognize patterns, and when we do see these patterns, we sometimes can get really bored or frustrated, especially when it's about a queue. Things like a zigzag queue are pretty much a no-go because of that, because it's, you know what you're getting into. So often what you see, even if a park has a zigzag queue, you'll see that somewhere halfway through it does not zigzag quite as you were expecting, and instead loops back a little bit earlier, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And this also helps with making some of the shortcuts work, because obviously if you have a zigzag, but it's not very busy in the park, you want to open up some of these gates just to make the queue a little bit shorter. So having these zigzags not always be a perfect zigzag also helps with that, because you can, loop back all the way to the back early on just to make sure that you have a shortcut there, which additionally helps as well just to make the queue more enjoyable. Now, I'm using one Team TK item in this entire park so far, and you can see those in the screen right now. And those are the emergency exit signs. So these are European emergency exit signs that I made myself. You can find them on the Planet Coaster workshop and use them for yourself. They light up just like real emergency exit signs. So I quite like to add a little bit of realism like that. Just to make it a bit more interesting looking, and just to kind of uglify the theming a bit, because obviously in real life you're gonna have a lot of that as well. Now, if you want to discuss things like that, in terms of the realism, I highly recommend my Discord. So I very recently started a Discord, and it's definitely been growing so far. I made a community post about it just a few days ago, but you can join the Discord community right now and enjoy some of these conversations that we're going to be having with members and other viewers who play games like this and like this sort of realism, like theme parks and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the community grow, and hopefully we can turn it into its own little niche of realistic theme park simulation game goodness. Now, back to the game though, we're just decorating this hallway just a little bit more with some props and things like that. Really not a lot of reasoning behind it, but just making sure that we get some medieval looking props in there, get some stairs in there, get some chains in there, get some rugs in there, all that sort of stuff. But with that out of the way though, we have one very large zigzag still left to do. I was kind of dreading trying to dress up this zigzag because it's pretty large, larger than I'd like it to be. So again, I really just had to break it up. And I'm doing so by just separating the room into separate bits by placing some walls and archways and things like that. Again, really just to kind of hide what's coming and breaking up the expectations of the guests. And this also came with the benefit that it gave me a bit more space to actually theme the whole place, just a little bit more, by placing some props on the walls and things like that. So I really quite liked how that ended up turning out. It's a pretty basic queue, it's nothing too special, but I think it gets the job done and it works as a queue pretty well. Now here you can see me really struggling with these fences because there are paths down there and their hitbox is a bit too large and it prevents me from actually selecting these fences. So that was really frustrating to work with, but I eventually managed to get it to work. It just took a lot longer than I was hoping it to. But oh well, in the end it works out. Planet Coaster definitely requires a manual to really get into the nitty-gritty details. Which is also why this time lapse is a little bit slower than my usual RST2 videos, simply because it just takes longer to do things in Planet Coaster. So that's also something very interesting. I really admire the Planet Coaster YouTubers because the things that they do definitely takes a lot longer than what I'm doing in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. It takes, you need to take care of the details a lot more. You can't just leave things up to the imagination of people, which I use a lot when I'm building in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. So, you know, that's something to think about when you're watching these kind of videos. It's definitely a very different type of game and requires you to play it in a very different way in order to make some YouTube videos about it. Now, of course, we need some lighting in here, so I'm just putting these you know, lanterns here and there. They don't have the nicest color, and you can't really change the color, I found out afterwards, but I think the color works in the end. So I'll just stick with that for now. Here I just wanted to close this off with something like a window, and I kind of like that because it gives, from the queue you can look directly into the hallway all the way to the entrance of the ride, and you can see people getting off, being really excited, and hopefully they'll make people a bit more excited about the ride as they are queuing there. Just to, you know, be like, hey guys, this might be a long wait, but, you know, it's gonna be worth it in the end. Now, before you get into the ride, I wanted to create a little indoor section which has a small gift shop. You know, just in case you wanted to buy some things there. And just a little area where you can just really quickly sit down, maybe have some family members sit down there if they don't dare to ride the ride, which is very possible because it is a free fall ride after all, a drop tower basically. So you have to think about those kind of things as well where you're building this. Now, in the end, one of the things that I'm not too happy about with this ride is it's maybe not the most realistic in terms of the capacity. For a park the size of Magic Towers, just having a single lift like this inside of the tower would not be feasible because the queue times would simply be too long. So I'm not sure how you would realistically solve that. Of course, you can't just place more lifts inside of these towers because they are relatively small. So you can't just do what they do at the Tower of Terror. They have like 2 to 3 lift shafts that are all connected up to each other basically. So in terms of the capacity, it's maybe not as realistic as I'd like. You know, maybe in the future I can come up with a solution or a reason for that or a way around that. Maybe it's able to hold multiple vehicles at the same time through, you know, making some of the show scenes a little bit longer and some a bit shorter. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but there's probably a way to make it work eventually. For now though, I really enjoy building this ride, so that's what we're going with. Now you can see me detailing the gift shop that we got over here. And speaking of gifts, I very recently, about a day ago at the time of recording this, I created a Patreon. Now I wasn't planning on really pushing that out yet, just creating it already and having some fun creating the graphics for it mostly. But to my surprise, I now have 3 Patreons already, and I would really like to thank these guys, and I'll name their names in a second here. So first of all, as the gold pass holders, we now have Carp Runner and Pentagest. Thank you guys so much for taking the gold tier, which gets you exclusive access to some additional content and a shout out in one of my videos, including some other cool stuff, so definitely check it out if you're interested. And I also want to do a special shout out to Emil. Now, he has the Magic Pass holder, which usually wouldn't come with a mention, but he's the very first one to get the Magic Pass. So thank you so much for all the support, it really helps me out, and you know, hopefully it allows me to keep creating these videos for a lot longer than I might have otherwise. And hopefully you guys will enjoy the additional content as well. Thank you so much. Back to Planet Coaster though. Here I'm just gonna try to decorate the you know, the center hall basically when you get into the ride. It's not gonna be themed very heavily, just some windows. It's gonna be a slightly larger building just to really give this grandiose feeling when you're entering the building, as if it is like a castle or something like that. Just to make the impression that this entire building is a lot larger than it might actually be, which I quite enjoy doing, because the rest of the building is all just a single floor tall. So you know, this really helps to give the illusion that there's a lot more to this building, even though it's just a very small show building that just happens to have 2 large towers on top of it, because that's in the end, that's exactly what it is supposed to be. Now, that's about it for this very first episode of the Magic Towers in Magic Towers Resort. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And definitely make sure to join me on my Discord server that I just created. And let's see where that goes as well. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys had a good one. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.